Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, teaming up with SG1 Sports. We bring you the most comprehensive look at college football. Tonight, we're looking at the top 5 running backs in the ACC for 2018. And to get some diversity of opinion here, I've got my list. And I'm bringing Mike McDaniel from Saturday in College Football and also Ryan Cantor from Shaking the Southland, the SB Nation platform for Clemson Athletics. Ryan and Mike join me on a regular basis to break down the ACC and the nation. All right, Ryan, I would be interested to hear your top 5 running backs in the ACC, because if you look down the stats from 2017, a ton of guys are coming back this fall.
Yeah, starting to look at the different positions as we slowly inch towards the football season. Quarterback play has been really strong in the ACC the last few years. Seems like that may shift a little bit to some other positions. And I think one position where the ACC is fairly strong is a running back. So I'll count down from 5. And you could stop me, or we can go back and review and talk about each one. Gervonta Benson, I have at number 5 from Georgia Tech. That's their B-back. Number 4, Travis Homer at Miami. Number 3, Clemson's Travis Etienne, rising sophomore, played significantly as a true freshman last year. Number 2, Cam Akers, top prospect, now a rising sophomore for Florida State. And number 1, Boston College's A.J. Dillon.
Okay, Ryan, so this is right in your wheelhouse. I would like you to be able to separate Travis Etienne and another obvious choice here as a contender for a top 5 list in Tavian Feaster, both from Clemson.
Yeah, so Feaster was a really big recruit when he came in. He had some shoulder issues and didn't get off to the fastest start in his career, but he's a junior now. And I think most people were expecting him to be listed as the starter, but in the most recent depth chart that came out, he was actually listed as the second team running back as an or, like a slash with Adam Choice, and rising sophomore Travis Etienne, who's probably the most explosive player on the team, was listed as a starter, which is a bit of a surprise. I think, sometimes with those depth charts, you don't know if it's how much is like a motivational tactic versus how much is the coach saying this is the guy who we expect to be the starter. I think in the end, we're going to see a bit of a timeshare. Adam Choice, years ago, before he tore his ACL, was actually starting over Wayne Gallman pre-national championship. He got hurt. Wayne Gallman kind of rose to the occasion and became the starter, eventually the starter on national championship team years later. He's now in his last year of eligibility. He's more of a strong pass blocker, between the tackles kind of guy, but I think he'll get a lot of play. Feaster, I think, will get plenty of snaps. He had the same amount of carries exactly as Travis Etienne last year. I think Etienne may have a bit more than him, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think they're both really good, but I think Etienne is CJ Spiller kind of explosive. So if he could pass block and stay healthy and not fumble, he may be the most exciting player in the entire conference. I mean, he's that interesting and fun.
So we've got Feaster coming off 659 yards rushing, 6.4 yards per carry, and 7 touchdowns. And if that sounds impressive, Travis Etienne, 744 on the ground, 7.2 per carry. Not a whole lot of running backs in big-time college football carrying around a 7-yard average per carry and 13 touchdowns. Ryan, I am amazed and kind of fascinated by the play of A.J. Dillon last year. So he's a freshman at Boston College. We know what the passing game typically is or is not at Boston College, so a lot was placed in his hands. He comes out of the gate, and in ACC play, through the first 4 weeks, just looking at conference games against quality competition, he runs for 43, 58, 55, and 35 yards. So a nondescript start. Then all of a sudden, after not carrying the ball more than 18 times against anybody, Steve Adazio hands him the ball 39 times against Louisville at a time in which we thought Louisville was significantly better than Boston College. By the end of the year, we found out that Boston College was in that wheelhouse of top 25 to 40 teams.
Probably better.
Runs 39 times in that game for 272 and a number of touchdowns in an upset against Louisville.
Yeah, it's we did our research independently, and I basically found the same storyline there. As in those first couple of games as a true freshman, he didn't do a whole lot. And then after the Clemson game, he really came to life. So in his last 9 games of the year, averaged 157 yards per game. Boston College had the second least passing yards in the conference, ahead of just Georgia Tech, which almost doesn't count. Their passing game was fairly non-existent. and they just continually handed them the ball. Defenses knew it was coming, and he still did something with it. I think their offensive line is going to be even better this year. They're going to continue to rely on them. Their passing game can't get worse. He had 1,589 yards rushing with 14 TDs, including bowl game stats. That should go up this year. That should be even better. I mean, he has a shot at being a 2,000-yard rusher. I think, with all respect to number 2, Cam Akers, who is probably more explosive, I think A.J. Dillon's a slam dunk, number 1 best running back in the conference.
His performance down the stretch, 149, 196, 200, 193, 50, 157. Did not take a week off down the stretch for Boston College, which reached a bowl game after abysmal showing in 2016. As you mentioned, he's got 4 offensive line starters back. It's probably going to be the best offense that Adazio's had in 6 years. I don't know if that's necessarily going to work into his favor in terms of building statistics and compiling numbers, because they might be able to spread it out a little bit more. They've got a freshman, now sophomore quarterback in Anthony Brown, who might be a little bit improved and take some pressure off of A.J. Dillon. All right, my top 5, similar to yours, but there's some differences here. So I've got Tavian Feaster at number 5. I've got Lorenzo Lingard, who has yet to carry the football at this level at number 4. And I understand the issue there and try to rate a guy that has yet to carry the football. So I can't do that. Obviously, I am projecting, though, towards 2018. So my thought here is that if you take any position in major college football and look at the top 5 in any conference, so any of the Power 5 conferences, run down whether it's a defensive line or safety position, running back, any position, and look at the top 5 players after the season, I guarantee you that 15 to 20% of those players are going to be freshmen. So somebody's going to burst onto the scene. And if it's not at running back, it's obviously going to be in several other positions in the ACC. So I'm going to take my shot with Lorenzo Lingard, the number 2 ranked running back in the nation, according to 247 Sports, out of Orange City, Florida. At number 3, I've got Travis Etienne. At number 2, I've got Cam Akers. I'm right there with you, Ryan. 930 yards, 5.1 per carry, 7 touchdowns in the regular season. And again, we talked it up concerning A.J. Dillon and what a year he had as a freshman.
We both have Cam Akers number 2 on our list. One note about him, he had 1,024 yards rushing last year. It's great. But he also did it with a true freshman quarterback, a team that clearly had some culture issues. They seem to be kind of faltering at points in the season. Defenses were really keying in on the run. Meanwhile, that offensive line was far from great. So that 1,024 yards is an extremely impressive 1,024, doing it while averaging over 5 yards per carry in less than ideal conditions, despite being on what's traditionally one of, if not the most talented program in the conference. So got to give it a little extra credit for Cam Akers there, not your typical team from Florida State around him.
And Ryan, as I just alluded to a few minutes ago, in regards to freshmen, we can't project. We can try, but we've got a little evidence on what to go on going into a season in which they're playing against much better competition. But we know that there will be freshmen that burst onto the scene. I'm also impressed with the amount of production coming back at the running back position. Actually, Lamar Jackson led the conference in rushing, but not a running back. And there were a few other players that ranked in the top 10 or 12 at the quarterback position. But for the running back position, I know you mentioned Travis Homer. He ran close to 1,000 yards last year and 7 touchdowns. Jordan Ellis, Virginia's main running back. Maybe this speaks to their lack of offensive line play and his lack of explosiveness. 3.9 yards per carry for Ellis, but he did run for over 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. Matt Coburn, Wake Forest running back, 754 on the ground, 5.2 per carry, and 6 touchdowns. Brittain Brown, much heralded freshman that went to Duke and turned in a fine first season, 660 yards and 6 touchdowns. And Darren Hall at Pitt should improve on his numbers at 628 on the ground, 4.9 per carry, and 9 touchdowns. And just to set you up in regards to getting past Lingard in regards to the freshman coming into the ACC, you got Ricky Person. May get some time at North Carolina State. He's out of Wake Forest, North Carolina, 4th rated running back in the nation. going to play for the Wolfpack and probably compete for a job. Cameron Davis, along with Lingard. Lingard is getting all the pub at Miami, but Davis, to his credit, 7th rated running back in the nation out of Miami Carroll City. Devin Lawrence, considering the issues on the offensive side of the ball for North Carolina last year, maybe he gets a shot as a true freshman, 20th rated running back out of Wake Forest, North Carolina as well. And also the brother of Dexter Lawrence. And then we've got Anthony Grant at Florida State out of Buford, Georgia. Probably not going to get much of a try this fall, but he is the 17th rated running back coming out of high school football, according to 247. And of course, Ryan, a guy that you're a little bit familiar with, even though we shouldn't see him this fall with that three-headed monster playing for Clemson, but Lynn J. Dixon, a 7th rated all-purpose back going to the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see him play significantly this year, although last year Travis Etienne started off as the number 4 running back who we expected to redshirt. So you never know. Notes on some of the guys that were on the list that we didn't talk about much. Talked about Linwood in Miami and some other talented freshmen in Miami. Travis Homer had 966 yards, as you mentioned, but 759 of those came in the final 9 games. One thing to keep in mind is Mark Walton was there and was the starter, got hurt with the ankle injury. It was following the Florida State game or in the Florida State game. And that was really a point when Miami could have really, he was extremely talented and they could have turned south, and they didn't, because Travis Homer picked up the slack and had a really good season, really delayed their collapse until the last 3 games of the year, when kept him undefeated until that point. I think Travis Homer is also a solid pass blocker. At least that's what some of the analytics say. I think he can hold off the freshman because of that. But even if he doesn't, given Mark Walton was there for the first couple of games, he should at least get more carries this year than last year just because of that. So I like Travis Homer. And then at Georgia Tech, I'm really high on Boston College. That's probably my ACC sleeper team of the year. But I'm really high on the Georgia Tech offense. They bring essentially their entire offense back. Taquan Marshall is the speedy running quarterback that runs their option attack. But Kervontae Benson's a B-back. That's you have 2 A-backs on each side, and then you have the B-back behind the quarterback who they hand off to, typically for the shorter, up the gut, more short yardage type plays. But he's a lot more versatile than just that. He could cut it outside if necessary. He averaged 5.2 yards per carry, had over 1,000 yards, even though they only played 11 games because they canceled a game and didn't make a bowl game as a result of that. So with so much returning on that offense, including the offensive line and a quarterback who didn't even average 40% completion percentage, even though they hardly ever passed the ball, if he could improve as a quarterback, that opens up some running lanes for Kervontae Benson. I think Benson could be really good this year. I'm very high on Georgia Tech's offense. Maybe not their defense, but their offense could be really good.
Unfortunately, having an issue technically with Mike McDaniel's feed. He has texted me his top 5. We got Brittain Brown from Duke at number 5. He has Travis Etienne at 4, Kervontae Benson at 3, number 2 running back at Cam Akers, and you can guess it, A.J. Dillon of Boston College at number 1. Breaking down the top 5 running backs for 2018 in the ACC with Ryan Cantor from Shaking the Southland. Ryan, we appreciate it.
Thank you.